The sun is shining today, but we have some really thick patches of cloud, which means occasionally the clouds will cover the sun completely and that would go really dull and grey. Right now, I'm in front of a window and you can see the light that's coming through the window is actually quite intense. Now, normally when it's sunny like this, I opt for an ISO 100 film, but when it's cloudy, I'd normally opt for an ISO 400 film, which is why I thought it was interesting and perfect time actually to test this Lomochrome Purple from Lomography. I bought this film a year ago during the shoot with Christy when we went into Lomography to buy the film that she was going to use for the shoot, but I just hadn't shot it. I just left it on my shelf. I remember it being quite expensive. I must have paid something near to almost £8 I think I paid for this film. So it's very, very expensive. But I just hadn't had the opportunity to shoot it. So I thought today would be a perfect day to shoot it. It's a perfect conditions. The reason why I say that is because this film claims to have a range between 100 to 400. I don't know if they expect you to shoot the entire roll at your selected ISO. Obviously, if you're using a manual camera, then it doesn't matter. You just meter for whatever you think you want to meter for. But for cameras that read the DX code, actually, I'm quite curious. What would my camera think this film was? Does it just not have a DX code? Does the camera just not know what the speed would be? I guess if I pop it in the Canon EOS, it has a DX code reader. Would I just confuse the heck out of it? Let's have a look. Alright, please excuse my workspace. I'm right in the middle of something and I just didn't want to touch the arrangement. So bear with me. Right, I'm going to pop the film in my Canon. I'm going to see what the Canon thinks. Okay, so let's see what the Canon thinks this ISO is. 400. That's exactly what I suspected. I think it's just an ISO 400 film. I think that depending on the exposure latitude of negative film to be able to cope with that extra 2 stops. So if you take an ISO 400 film like Portra 400 and you shot it as an ISO 100 film, you'd be overexposing by 2 stops. That's perfectly fine for Portra 400. In fact, a lot of people do that anyway. So I think it's, I don't know. I still think it's a gimmick. But let's see how it feels when I'm out shooting. My camera just thinks it's a 400 film, so it's going to shoot it at 400. I guess I could compensate. I've got exposure compensation on this camera, so I guess I could bring it down 2 stops to force some ISO 100 shots. I'll take a note of which ones they are, and I'll note them in the video. All right, I'll see you in town.
Lomography recently had a Kickstarter campaign. It was for the LomoChrome Metropolis XR 100 to 400 film. The goal was reached very quickly, which indicates there's a kind of a high demand for this sort of film. So the difference is one is called Purple and the other one's called Metropolis. I kind of had my suspicions about the ISO, so I decided to shoot at 400 speed default because that's what my camera originally guessed. But I did shoot at 100 speed by adjusting the exposure compensation to suit the scenery. And the effect I got was just really grainy shots, sometimes muddy shadows. Shooting at 100 means you're overexposing the film a little bit more, but I just got really patchy colors and weird grain. To be honest, I think it's just a 400 speed film, as suggested by the camera. Even though it doesn't have a DX code, I think my camera just defaults to 400 speed. I think that's probably what it is. And Lomography is depending on the exposure latitude of film, of negative film anyway, to cover that 100 to 400 speed claim. Overall though, I just think it's a little bit too grainy and patchy for my kind of photography and my liking. Perhaps people taking these edgy, moody street photographs, they'll probably love this. This would take amazing photos in places like Hong Kong or some kind of, corner in New York City with a sort of dark, contrasty illumination of neon lights or something like that, I guess. It would certainly produce quite nice very Lomo looking photos that you can take with those toy Lomography cameras. And that's probably what this stuff is intended for, if you ask me. They're not supposed to be accurate. I mean, it's purple for heaven's sake. And if you look at the photos, you see that a lot of purple happens, especially with white and beige buildings. You really see the purple. The skies kind of go greenish, and the rest of the shadows just go a bit weird and muddy. If I were you, I would overexpose this film for sure, and definitely expose for the shadows, because if you don't expose for the shadows, you're going to end up with dark, muddy, patchy, super grainy photos. Perhaps the Metropolis will be a little bit different, but I can imagine is roughly the same. From the pictures I've seen online, it looks the same kind of contrasty, patchy consistency, but it tends towards more green rather than purple. Anyway, when it gets released, I surely will be getting a couple of those and giving it a spin. That's it for today. Until next time, peace.